Count. Here it comes. Swing and a shot. Deep out to left. Refsnyder turning around. It is gone. Well, one of the great hitters in the game, and he absolutely smoked it for a 3-run homer. And Toronto leads it 4-2.
Yeah, you could tell from two batters ago that Slayton didn't really have his good curveball today. Didn't have the bite. He was leaving some up over the plate that weren't breaking much. But the thing is here, there's no reason to throw anything over the plate. And I guarantee he's trying to get that down below it for Chase with the base open. And it cost him.
That's how it ended last night in Toronto. And candidly, it was a series the Red Sox could have swept. They could have swept the Blue Jays in Toronto. Instead, they lost 2 out of 3. Last night being the saltier of the 2 defeats. They lose to the Blue Jays on a home run by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the bottom of the 8th inning that erased a 2-1 deficit for Toronto, sent them on to a 4-2 victory. The Red Sox had a 2-0 lead at one point in that game. It was a pitcher's duel throughout. And that decision to pitch to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with runners at second and third. I think there was 1 out at the time. 1 out in the 8th inning with Justin Slayton on the mound. First base open. The Red Sox elected to pitch to Guerrero, who then hit, it's an old baseball expression, it's a cliche, but in this case, it was absolutely true. Hit a freaking clothesline into the left field seats. That thing looked like a drone, for crying out loud, zipping right into the left field seats. It was a laser rocket of a home run. And before I get to Tyler Milliken and Matt McCarthy, both of whom are here on the Roundtable Friday. That's right, all 3 of us. It's an actual round table.
It's a blue moon.
Second time this season?
A third, I believe.
Look at that.
Wow.
Third time.
We're crushing it.
We're hot.
The first week was 1. We had 1 more after that. This is 3. So I would say on a percentage basis, not bad.
We're going to the Hall of Fame.
We're hitting better than the Red Sox in the late innings, I'll tell you that. 617-779-0985 is the number. So let me start with the simplest question. Okay? In real time, give me your honest assessment. Would you have walked him, Tyler Milliken?
I was willing to pitch to Vlad Guerrero in that spot. I was not scared to, because I look at Anthony Santander from a year ago in September. If you remember, I believe it was September 11th to be exact. Justin Slayton in the 8th inning, Anthony Santander takes him to the moon. There was a history there of Santander being good against him. And I also thought at the very beginning of that at-bat, you showed what it took to get Vlad Guerrero out. You beat him down the pipe, fastball directly in, so much that it looked like Slayton almost flinched because the ball was so poorly located. But I think in that moment, his command being off for the second day in a row, you saw how cautious he was in that spot because he was scared to miss directly in the zone once again. I don't even think the curveball he threw to Vlad Guerrero was a bad pitch.
It wasn't a bad pitch.
It was out of the zone. You put it basically where you want unless you wanted to spike the ball. I was okay taking that risk because at that point, you're putting yourself in a spot with Slayton where he's had trouble throwing strikes recently. Do you really want to walk a guy in with the bases loaded and take that chance? That's a little much for me.
Okay, McCarthy.
No way am I pitching to Guerrero in that situation. And Milliken's right. He hit a pitch out of the zone. He pitched around him. That was actually a pretty good pitch from Slayton. And he took you deep because he's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Are you insane pitching to him in that spot? That guy's paid $500 million for a reason. And you saw the reason why they pay him $500 million. I don't care if it's righty-righty. I don't care if it loads the bases and Slayton needs to actually throw some strikes. You do not pitch to the other team's best hitter. That guy is a planet hitter. They screwed that up. Alex Cora screwed that up. It was an obvious second guess in the moment, and it was obviously an even worse decision after what happened, which was totally predictable.
Okay, so there's a reason I ask you this, because, again, to me, it's sort of the classic, simplest second guess in baseball. A guy comes up, first base open, he's a great hitter. You have a guy on the mound that has pitched well for you this year, despite what happened a couple of nights ago, and Slayton has now lost a couple in a row. But nonetheless, you look at it and you say, what do? You trust your guy, or you're scared by their guy? Like, to me, there's a fascinating decision there, and it historically that's been true in baseball. Do you believe in your guy more than you fear the guy on the other side? That is what the decision is. And sometimes you go with your guy. If you have a Aroldis Chapman, now again, he might be a bad example because he walks people by mistake, or, yeah. But, you're throwing 104 miles an hour in his prime. No, I'm going to trust Chapman here. Or Jonathan Papelbon, if he were on the mound in his prime. Nope, I'm going to go. Or Mariano Rivera. I'm not walking him. I'm letting him pitch. That's what I'm going to do. So, I believe there's always two sides to it. Okay, so I love the fact that you guys don't agree on this, but I'll tell you this. Here's where the clarity came in for me. And I know how Jimmy Stewart felt, because Jimmy was adamant about this before the show today, probably way more than I was, and I give him credit, so thank you, Jimmy, for that, because you got me worked up about it, which is ultimately what's important. So what I didn't like is that ultimately the final pitch was a pitch that they wanted him to spike in the dirt. That's what they wanted. If you're going to do that because you're so afraid of him and you're willing to give up the walk,
You got to walk him.
then put him on. 4 fingers, don't even start the at-bat, put him on base, and that's the end of it. Tyler, hold the thought. Alex Cora last night, and this is a whole different issue, incredibly, and I hate to be that old bastard who's talking down to the younger members of the media who cover the team.
Shame, 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 shame.
You got to ask the question. That's why you're there. You have to ask the question. And if you're worried about being yelled at, that's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on the person answering the question. It means that they were probably conflicted about it, and they're probably regretting it. Even so, you can ask it in such a way that isn't confrontational or offensive. It's kind of an art form which you will learn. Alex, understanding that you would have loaded the bases, did you give any consideration to putting Guerrero on anyway and not pitching to him because of how dangerous a hitter he is? Let him answer it. Unfortunately, that had to happen tonight. So let's play for you what Alex Cora said over at Fenway Park. This is going to come in a couple of parts. Chris Cotillo of Mass Live, I believe, asked this question, Jimmy, and he blames the media. And I said this to Felger a few minutes ago, so forgive me for repeating myself. That part of it never bothered me. You know, again, we're in there. We're the a-holes. That's the job. You're in there. You're asking the question. If someone wants to say, and now I'm getting all jumbled here, but we're here in the studio, rather, second guessing it. And if you want to say the guys on the radio are causing the stir, that's fine. You know, blame your wife if you want, if you're in there asking the question. I've seen guys do that. Yeah, you know, I was home last night watching the game. My wife, I've seen that.
Blame Jordan.
What the point is, you don't want to take responsibility for it because you don't want to look like an a-hole.
I want to hear about the reporter who blamed his wife. You can tell me off the air.
But the important part is the answer. Okay, the important part is the answer. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Just if it's been a social media and talk radio conversation, would you have ever considered walking Vladdy in that spot?
You know what? I thought about it, and probably if it's in the World Series, I would walk him. Yeah. And we can't play in the World Series.
Okay, so that's the extent of the first answer. Now, there's other stuff out there on Twitter and whatnot that has been written, and forgive me, guys. I know we don't get many chances to sit together. I'm talking to Milliken and McCarthy now, but I just want to play these answers because nobody's heard them. This should have been asked last night. People should have read it. They should have heard it. They should have seen it. If they were watching the game and they care, what was he doing? That's what everyone wanted to know. What was Cora doing? What was he thinking? So, Jimmy, now let's get the second half of this.
You know, the walking part of it, I get it, you know. He's Vladimir Guerrero, you know. We had him too, you know, and we didn't execute pitches after that. There's a two-way street here, and I get it, you know, probably in the ALCS, I'll walk him, right? But right now in April and May, I got to trust my guy. You know, I got to give Justin the lead weight that he can do the job. And he's been great for us. And yesterday, he didn't execute 3 pitches, right? 1-2 breaking ball, a 1-2 breaking ball, and a 3-2 breaking ball, you know? And we learned from that. I learned from that too, you know? Maybe the next time we face him, we'll think about it, right? But it's all about trust right now, you know? We have a lot of young players in this roster. And where we're going, you know, it's not decided. Well, it might be decided from yesterday. We might lose the wild card, the division by 1 game, and it's on me, right? But I think the way I manage right now, especially with this group, you got to be very patient because I truly believe this is a very talented team. It's not like last year that you have to, like, pedal to metal and pinch it in the 5th or walk this guy and try to will wins out there. Now, you trust Justin Slayton in that situation yesterday? It didn't happen. That's being honest with you.
Okay.
Just following up.
Let's stop there, Jimmy. Thank you. Because, again, that's a much more thorough answer, and it's the real answer. But let's start with McCarthy this time. Do you accept that answer?
I do, but that doesn't mean I like it or disagree with it. Like, I understand where the manager is coming from. I just think you've shown enough faith in Justin Slayton by having him be one of your 3 primary relievers, having him close games for you. I don't think you need to show it to him in that spot. I think Cora's on the right track in saying that I want to show belief in my players, and this was a moment to do it. I get where the manager's coming from on that. I just think that's a bit of an excuse to excuse away a bad baseball decision, and that was a bad baseball decision last night. So I don't mind the approach. I just didn't like the execution in that spot because it didn't call for it in that spot. He's already shown faith in the player.
Sorry, Matt. Milliken?
Yeah, I hate the response. I don't think it's very logical, and I think when you look at what he did the night before, it shows a lot of inconsistency, because at that point, you could have trusted Justin Slayton, going up in that 10th inning and trying to work around. They intentionally walk Springer after he goes down a couple pitches. You intentionally walk Dalton Varsho, who struck out 26% of the time last year. If you truthfully want to show trust in your player in Justin Slayton, who you said before, I think he's a future closer, we think he's someone who can hold that spot down, you let him go to work and battle against a guy in Dalton Varsho who was playing his first game back all season long, and credit to him, he hit a couple homers.
So
in
Tyler,
series.
stop for 1 second, just because for people who don't know, the night before, Slayton had a similar situation, not identical, man on third. At that time was 1 out also, first and second base open, and he walked 2 people.
Yes, he let him start against Springer, and then as he got down in the count, he said, screw it. George Springer's ahead 2-1. I'm going to intentionally walk.
Right now, and at the same time, the game was tied. They were in extra innings, so the runner comes home, the game's over. In this case, the Red Sox are up a run. The guy scores from third, the game is tied. But nonetheless, on the first night, he walked 2 guys to load the bases. Last night, he pitched to Guerrero, and both times he lost.
Correct.
So go ahead.
And then in that spot on the night before, you have Alejandro Kirk, who you put in that position, who is one of the best bat-to-ball guys in baseball. You want to talk an old-school hitter, someone who knows situational hitting, someone who can lift the ball like we talk about this Red Sox team not being able to do in crucial situations. Instead, you set him up against Alejandro Kirk instead of letting him attack Dalton Varsho, who's a little more dangerous. He might pull the ball out of the ballpark, but you should be playing for a strikeout on that spot, because if you make contact with the runner at third, more than likely you're losing with less than 2 outs. To me, there's just a lack of consistency over those 2 nights back-to-back.
So that's a part, to me, that I can't, I felt like Cora was all over the map in those 2 games. And I get this all the time from callers who say, fire the manager. I'm game for it. You want to talk, and I mean the discussion. You want to call and fire the manager, fire the manager. Talk radio's built on it.
Thank you.
Okay? I also believe the pitching coach and the hitting coach should always be part of the discussion.
Done.
The Red Sox have fired both of those positions during the course of a season. In the same breath, I'm going to tell you this. Alex Cora is going nowhere.
That's a mistake.
They just signed him to a 3-year contract. This is year 1. They're paying him $7.5 million a year. They're not going to fire him 33 games into the season.
Again, a mistake.
Okay? So, but again, if you want to do that as a fan, we can have the discussion.
They love him so much they bent backwards and signed his lieutenant this offseason. Essentially, when we know Craig Breslow didn't believe in paying a player like Alex Bregman at his age. That's how much they believe and think of Alex Cora, the same guy who had to turn down the CBO position before Craig Breslow was hired.
So look, and it might be that helped get Bregman here. I don't know. I mean, they paid him out the nose. It might have helped to get him here to have Cora. There's certainly a benefit to that. I'm just telling you there was an inconsistency in those 2 nights. On one night, you walk 2 guys, you load the bases. On the next night, you pitch to Vladimir Guerrero, which I don't get. And there are a few players in baseball you just don't F with. He's one of them. To me, he's one of the scariest hitters in the game.
No doubt about it.
And it's not even just the game.
And I don't care what the numbers are. Watch him hit. The guy's he's a freak of nature. Go
He
ahead.
dropped his package on you after the game. He essentially goes and tells you, guess what? I do this against the Red Sox all the time. He knows the situation. We all know the situation. So for that to be the spot where you're not going to be consistent, it just doesn't make much sense to me.
Did Milliken just use what I would call more of an old school baseball thing, obviously with a bit of a newer school term, but did Milliken just use feel, saying man, that guy kills you. You shouldn't pitch to him. No stats behind it. That's how good Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is. Even Milliken's using the eye test.
Because the stats are so good, we are essentially saying the Red Sox got to do whatever to sign him because he's been the best hitter against you. What, him and Rowdy Tellez have given you the most bad memories the last 10 years?
When you say feel, I thought you were talking about him saying dropping your package.
Me too. I was wondering where you were going.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
Landed the plane on it, Milliken.
We are off and running. 617-779-0985 here on the Baseball Hour. Big picture question with the Red Sox. Where they are after 33 games. Is it good enough? ESPN gave them a B- for a grade thus far. Is that fair? Is it unfair? We'll get to that all when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
Every night it's one of these guys. Last night Slayton. The night before it's Wyckoff, Whitlock. The night before it's going to be Bernardino. The night before it's Weissert. The pitching coach has got to change. I mean, one of these guys blows up and costs them the game. It's more than just a freak accident now. It's happening constantly.
Yeah, so Alex, I'll tell you that up until we had Chris Cotillo on earlier this week. I don't know if you guys heard him or not, but he said one of the few things that's gone well for the Red Sox is the end of the bullpen. And he was talking about Slayton, Whitlock, and Aroldis Chapman. And I would say he's largely right. Those guys have generally been good. Hold on to the thought, Tyler. Sean in Colorado. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for taking the call. Tyler, just for you, Brandon Clark looks pretty good. No, that'll set off Tony. But just wanted to kind of ask about Roman Anthony's timeline. I think we're all kind of just well aware at this point that the Red Sox are going to play the service time manipulation thing with him. They're going to wait until they can assure that age 27 year for him. I think the team needs a change-up. How long can they wait? And if they are truly committed to doing that, how long will they wait until they finally make the call to Roman Anthony?
Sean, thanks for the call. Let's just get this one out of the way quickly, all right? But how long can they wait on those guys? Like what timeline are we looking at? Keep it short.
Yeah, I think Marcelo Meyer, that conversation, unless there's an injury or Trevor Story continues to fall off a cliff or look absolutely useless, that's when that happens. I think they're fine letting Meyer play half the year, bare minimum down there. Roman Anthony's a much different conversation because he's dominating. He's back in the field. He fouled a pitch off his foot a couple days back, but was able to make it. I think we're in the range in the middle of this month where they're going to be forced into the decision. Ceddanne Rafaela looking better at the plate recently, I think has eased it a little bit, but I don't think we're, by June 1st, Roman Anthony's on the big league team.
It's going to take an injury. I think the Red Sox are perfectly content keeping him down there. If Campbell were legitimately hurt, and it doesn't sound like he is, sounds like he'll be back in the lineup tomorrow, that would have forced a lot of discussion. Campbell's out of the lineup. It's time to bring Anthony up, put Rafael at second, or it's time to bring Meyer up. Up until that point, until somebody gets hurt, I think the Red Sox are totally fine keeping those guys down there, which in Anthony's case, I think is a mistake.
Okay, now let's go to the bigger picture, because last year at this time, the Red Sox were 18-15. This time they're 17-16. So, they are 33 games. They're basically the same team. I mean, you can really bust their balls on it and say they're worse. I think they're standings-wise, or one-loss record-wise, they're effectively the same team. ESPN did a thing on grading teams through the first 30 games of the year. They gave the Red Sox a B-. I'd say that's probably about right, somewhere in there. They're not quite as good as everyone thought they would be. But you guys tell me your assessment of them here in the early part of the year. Have they been good enough? Is it something you should be worried about?
They're a C baseball team right now because on paper they're better than this. And listen, 17-16 is not a disaster. They're 2 games out of first place, but it's the way it's looked, guys, and it's the way they're losing these games that concerns me. They're losing these games in kind of dumbass fashion. The end of the game the other night, Milliken, explained what Cora did wrong at the end of that game. Ceddanne Rafaela catching that ball flat-footed in center field. Like, they're not. I have concerns about their culture. Do they have a winning culture? And I don't think they've totally established that yet. They're better on paper than a 17-16 team, but the way they lose is painful. The way they lose is frustrating. Those 16 losses, how many of them have you wanted to pull your hair out over in the way they've lost those games? That's what I'm more concerned about. I think they'll be fine because I think there's enough talent on this team that they'll be fine. But I don't think I can give them anything better than a C because they should be better than this.
Yeah, I think a C is the right range, and maybe that's even being a little nice. And I simply look at one thing here, strength of schedule. The Red Sox right now have had the easiest schedule in all of baseball to start the year. And you are 1 game over 500, a team that, whether it's MLB.com or ESPN, they were being pegged as pennant winners in the American League very frequently, or at least an ALCS matchup against the Tigers here. The only 2 teams who've had weaker schedules are the Twins and White Sox. Hell, we saw what happened with the White Sox, and I think what McCarthy highlights, some of those losses have just been more than just a regular loss. I think there's losses over the course of 162 that stick with you. A lot of times it's the blown saves like you saw in the second half last year. And you can look at those last 2 losses in Toronto. The 5-error game that Friday night in Chicago. The Tanner Houck beatdown where you just leave him out there and it's Kyle Bearclaw. He has to pitch the innings or else the entire team's going to be cooked. But considering what teams you have ahead of you here, this is your schedule in the month of May. You got the Twins coming up, which is the worst team you're going to face. Rangers, Royals, Tigers, Braves, Mets, Orioles, Brewers, Braves. The fact that you didn't take care of business in that first month of the season, going through something like this here, That's the kind of games and series you're going to look back at and say, if we just took care of business, we'd have a lot more breathing room, and it wouldn't feel like we're fighting for our lives in the second month of the season.
Okay, now let me ask you this, because again, I don't know if you guys ever read Matt Gross in SB Nation. Matt was an auction winner here at 98.5, came on the Felger and Maz show because he donated to Christmas in the City. We gave a bunch of spots to people a number of years ago. He was one of those guys.
Incredible writer. Very good.
He's now writing for SB Nation. He had these stats from the other night, which I frankly found fascinating. And these numbers, by the way, were entering last night. Okay, and just let me add that last night in the final 4 1/3 innings of the game, the Red Sox went 1 for 13 with 3 strikeouts and did not score. Okay, 1 for 13 with 3 strikeouts in the final 4 1/3. Now add that on to this. In late and close situations this year, the Red Sox are batting 178 with a 566 OPS, and they're striking out 29% of the time.
That high? It feels worse.
Okay, so I agree. I would have thought that it's worse, too. I would have thought like 35, 40%.
Right.
Then, also this stat. Boston has a 908 OPS in the first 3 innings of all games. 908. And the rest of the way, it is then just 673. The ultimate point is this. The Red Sox have won games by blowout. They have piled up numbers early. The later they get in the game, the worse they get. And I would say that this seems to be true of most teams with the effectiveness now of bullpens now, rather. But the Red Sox are among the worst in the division and the league in these 2 categories. So you tell me, is this just a coincidence or is there something bigger at play here?
I'm going to go, I think there is slightly something bigger at play because you look back a year ago, they were 4th in all of baseball in late and close situations in terms of OPS. So this is a dramatic change of where you were at.
So what is it?
I think late in games when you're facing bullpens and you're facing higher velocity, you're seeing a common theme of weakness. That is with this Red Sox lineup right now. They have multiple guys who struggle really badly to catch up to 95 plus. You can talk Trevor Story. You can talk Rafael Devers, who's whiffing 40% of the time against fastballs. Late in games, you're seeing that premier velocity more than ever. Teams know how to attack you.
And they can't hit it.
Yeah, it's a good point for Milliken that some of their guys are easily attacked by high power bullpen arms. I think you're spot on about that. I also think, again, kind of going back to the culture thing, this team, let's be honest, their core was brought up and developed in a culture where losing was okay. You know, it wasn't entirely about winning baseball games, and that was the message that the front office sent. And now all of a sudden it's about winning baseball games, and you don't know what to do at the end of games to win. Cedar Rafael is a great fielder, right? I mean, all the talent in the world. Was that a good play the other night in center field?
No, he fell asleep.
Was that a winning play? It wasn't. Because you know what? That's been okay here because you haven't had to win games. I think this team has a bit of a culture problem. They're underachieving for the reasons that Milliken just mentioned. They're not good in close games, and those are phenomenal stats, Maz, which kind of backs up how I've felt about the team all year long with the eye test. And they can't beat up on teams they should be beating up on. That speaks to a bit of a culture problem, too. I think it's a confluence of those factors. Some of these guys are attackable, but I do think there's a culture problem, and I think the manager has certainly some blame to ultimately shoulder for that.
And it's not all offense, because if you look at it, too, when you're talking about the mistakes, Duran thrown out of the plate, two guys picked off in the Rafaela play.
They lead baseball on picked off runners right now.
Yeah, and then you lose the game by a run in extra innings. 617-779-0985. Back to your calls. Also, when we come back, we're going to play again the call of the home run from last night. In fact, Jimmy, I'll call for it in segment. But because I think there's a message in there that I missed, frankly, the first time through. We'll get to that. But McCarthy will get you caught up on headlines. Don't go anywhere. right, back here on the baseball hour. Tell you what, let's do this. Ed in Rhode Island has been waiting patiently, so let's bring in Ed, and then I want to get back to the call of the what ultimately was the game-winning home run last night by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Ed in Rhode Island.
This is a question
Ed, you there?
Yes, hi. Can you hear
go
me?
ahead. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. What do you got?
The question directed at you. Let's say hypothetical that you have to go 90 and 72 to get into the playoffs, okay?
Okay.
Now, to date, they have given up 8 one-run games, losses.
Yes.
Projected over 162. That's about 21 run losses in a season. Does that seem like a lot to you? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. That could be the difference of getting in and not getting in.
Well, right.
These games that they're losing.
Yeah, so Ed, they're not going to win them all, right? They're not going to win all of those. But just split the difference. So he said how many? 7?
Yeah, they're 4-7 in one-run games this year.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. Let's just make it easy. That's 11 games. Let's say they go 6-5, just a 2-game difference. Well, that changes your record to 18 and 17, 19 and 14. Now you're 5 games over.
Right, which is where they should be.
Okay, so what becomes an 83-win pace now puts you on pace for, I'll do the math quickly. Okay, so you're going to have to give me a second.
I don't know, closer to 90, right?
Puts them on 88. A 93-win pace.
Oh, wow, there you go.
Okay, so those couple of games make a big, big difference. That's a huge difference when you're talking about a 30-game sample. And I would disagree with the caller to say that it's not, 90 and 7. You don't need 90 to get in. I think 86, 87 with the extra wild card will get you in. But to be safe, you want high 80s or 90. 90 is a good target. So, but yes, the answer is yes. You can't expect to win by 5 runs every night and hit the ball all over the ballpark. You can't win that way.
But in some ways, that's the way they've won their games this year. So let's expand it out to 2-run games. So close ball games, not just 1-run games, 2-run games.
Sure.
Red Sox are 6-8 in 2-run games this year. You know who their 6 wins have come against? 3 against the White Sox and 1 each against the Blue Jays, Rays, and Cardinals.
Would you say we're 6-8?
6-8 in 2-run games. And those 6 wins have come against the White Sox 3 times, the Blue Jays, the Rays, and the Cardinals. Worst team in baseball history. Kind of suck, definitely sucks. So they're not good, to Milliken's point, in close ball games. And, I mean, frankly, the games they've been best in close ball games have been against their worst competition. This isn't good enough.
You can go back to last year. If you just want context, the best team in 1-run games last year was the Dodgers. They were 21-8. That's the difference. Right now, your pace is below 500. That's usually something that doesn't end up in the playoffs. And, a lot of front offices today will tell you 1-run games, we think it's somewhat a fluky stat.
Luck. It's you and your analyst friends, Tyler.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. But when you have Alex Cora as your manager, those are supposed to be one of those things where he wins out. The guys that have the feel, that are able to kind of play these situations out, that understand the stuff that some of these managers that are either getting driven by a front office or completely lean on the analytics because they didn't develop that feel over time. That's where Alex Cora and the Red Sox should excel, and that's why it's so disappointing to see them not succeed in those situations.
I mean, those 1- and 2-run games, and again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Those games are about relief pitching and situational play. That's what those games are. And the fact that the analysts chalk it up to luck, to me, goes right up my backside. That is an excuse. It's a cop-out. It means that you don't excel at some of the finer points, like that game the other night. They made a crap ton of mistakes that cost them 90 feet on a few occasions and ultimately cost them a situation that produced a game-winning run for Toronto when Rafael had his head up his ass in center field. So because of that, they had to walk 2 guys and load the bases and get Kirk up at the plate when he singled and won the game. They're 10-15 in 1- and 2-run games combined.
Not good enough.
Okay, 10-15. That's not going to do it. You're not going to win 11-2 in the playoffs all the time. It's not going to happen. Now, sorry, I went on. The call of the final play last night, the home run by Guerrero last night. Jimmy, let's go ahead and play it again, please.
Full count. Here it comes. Swinging a shot. Deep out to left. Refsnyder turning around. It is gone. Well, one of the great hitters in the game, and he absolutely smoked it for a 3-run homer. And Toronto leads it 4-2.
Yeah, you could tell from 2 batters ago that Slayton didn't really have his good curveball today. Didn't have the bite. He was leaving some up over the plate that weren't breaking much. But the thing is here, there's no reason to throw anything over the plate.
Okay, Jimmy, let's stop. So 2 things. Dave O'Brien says one of the great hitters in the game. What I think he didn't say, but he wanted to, was why did you pitch to him?
Right. It's implied.
Okay,
so ruled all over. Anytime Vlad Guerrero comes up, Dave O'Brien is on the verge of losing his mind. He loves him.
Yeah, me too.
So he's a hard guy not to love. Guerrero's fun to watch hit. He's fun to watch hit. And then I also think Will Middlebrooks in the booth saying you could see it 2 batters ago, as if to say, why did you pitch to this guy? Shouldn't have pitched to him, and certainly you can't leave one over the middle of the plate. So again, I think what happened as the at-bat went on, they got to the final pitch of the at-bat, Carlos Narvaez, taps his mitt on the ground face down, making it clear, bury this thing in the dirt, don't leave this in a spot where he can hit it. Slayton tried, but it was halfway between the knee and the top of the foot, so let's call it middle of the shin, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and this is part of it too, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a freak. He's like Rafael Devers in this way. He can squint especially if he's hot. But no matter where it is, if you leave it in a hittable spot, not only can he hit it, he can hit it out of the ballpark, which is exactly what he did. So the Red Sox left themselves vulnerable against a great hitter who has the capacity to really hurt you in a million spots. He took advantage of it. And most everyone knew it. So again, those guys, I'm not picking on those guys, but I think they knew it too, and they just played it cautiously. Cora knows it. Cora would not have ultimately said what he said tonight if he didn't second guess it himself. So when he was asked about it after the game, yeah, I thought about it. It crossed my mind. How could it not? It had to cross his mind. So you can say, Cora's an idiot. No. Cora's not an idiot. He made a choice. And there is something to be said for that whole logic, Tyler, of bringing along the young guy. So, I just, to me, though, back to something you said, Matt, to me, you don't give games away and risk that. You want to risk it in a game you're tied and there's, 2 outs and nobody on. I mean, you're up 1, 2 outs and nobody on, and he's the tying run. Okay, maybe even then I would say don't risk it, but whatever. In this case, it costs you the game.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And, Cora is saying, I'm doing this for the long term because I'm trying to build confidence in my guy. We're going to need him. I want, he is going to be, Slayton is going to be your big power righty against right-handed hitters all throughout this year. So I need to let my guy face a guy like Guerrero. Sure, I get that. I understand that. Not in that spot. Because that spot doesn't dictate it. First base is open, you walk him. He didn't even make that bad a pitch. It's not where Narvaez wanted it to be. It's not where it needed to be. But that pitch strikes out a lot of hitters in baseball. It doesn't strike out Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. And they pitched that guy. It was a mistake.
So, believe it or not, the irony is that some good things actually happened for the Red Sox in these 2 nights. The most surprising of which I know Tyler wants to emphasize. We'll do that when we come back in the Baseball Hour. right, so here's the good news from the last 2 days if you want a little good news. Send you into the weekend smiling.
We try to do that every week here
Well,
on the
I know,
Baseball Hour, don't we?
it's one of my priorities. Jimmy knows this. I'm really a happy person. So, Lucas Giolito made his debut a couple of nights ago and was surprisingly good. And I say surprisingly because everyone was expecting the worst, or at least I was.
And then Cora left him in too long.
Okay, so...
Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to question the manager. My fault.
No, you can question the manager, Jimmy. It's allowed. And then last night, Tanner Houck, I think, pitched his best game of the year. But Tyler, you tell me, I know you were impressed by the two starters.
I was extremely impressed, especially with Tanner Houck. I don't know what the hell they did to him over the last 5 or 6 days or so. But to throw the hardest he's ever thrown, 2 full ticks, his sinker went up. That completely changes your profile as a pitcher. I'm also happy that they realize at this point in time, Tanner Houck isn't able to miss bats, whether it's with the sweeper or with the splitter. Teams are sitting, especially when you have a lefty at the plate, they're sitting on the splitter like Cleveland did. 4 hits in that first inning when, you go back to his second to last start. But he threw the sinker 63% of the time in this start. That's the path forward for him. My question would be with Tanner Houck is, can you throw this hard every single start? He said his mechanics were finally where they needed to be, all this different stuff, and he was throwing the ball in the zone like he was in the first 2 months of last year. I don't know how much confidence I have in him maintaining this, because his only 2 good starts this season have come against the Blue Jays. But to go full 2 miles per hour up on that sinker, what a dramatic change. If he's able to tap into that, he's going to be fine this year. I just don't know how likely that is.
His numbers against the Blue Jays historically very good. They've been largely a right-handed lineup. He ties them up. But everything Tyler said was accurate. He looked a lot better. Bayo has Connor Wong behind the plate tonight. He had Carlos Narvaez for the first couple of starts. Wong now back. McCarthy, what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm concerned about it. I actually, if you want to bet the Twins tonight, you might want to bet the Twins. You can also get some very good value on Brian Bayo over 2.5 earned runs tonight. Did you watch the documentary, Maz?
I've not seen much of it.
There's a great moment in the documentary where Brian Bayo is essentially having a meltdown over the way that Connor Wong is calling the game. A few episodes later, after they trade for Danny Jansen, they show you basically the exact opposite. The storytelling in it is actually really good. It's a good doc. I recommend if you haven't seen it, check it out. Jansen comes in, and all of a sudden, Bayo's happy with the way that Jansen is calling the game. What I took away from that, and I had heard some rumblings about this last year, and we'd probably talked about it on the Baseball Hour last year, is the way that I don't know if pitchers like pitching to Wong. And given Bayo's, I would say, problems above the shoulders, I don't like this spot for the Red Sox tonight. I think Brian Bayo needs to pitch to Narvaez every 5 days. He just doesn't have it above the shoulders. He just questions himself too much, and you need to do everything you can in your power to help that kid out. Giving him Connor Wong behind the plate does not help him out. You need to give him the better catcher, the better receiver. That is not Connor Wong. He returns tonight from the injured list, and they just install him right back in there. I'm sorry. This team is better with Narvaez behind the plate, and I'm not sure the Red Sox have fully realized that yet.
Tyler, what were the numbers last year that you read off the air about Bayo with catchers behind the plate?
So last year, when Brian Bayo was pitching to Reese McGuire, he had a 5.81 ERA. To Connor Wong, it was a 4.64 ERA. To Danny Jansen, it was a 3.23 ERA. And something I think that's important is you go back to 2023, if you were paying attention to the Red Sox, who was Brian Bayo closest with? Of maybe any player. It was Reese. It was Reese McGuire in 2023. No, it's okay. But there has been a consistency with him where he's never really gravitated towards Brian Bayo in this way. The stats backed it up even more last year. And listen, Reese McGuire, he wasn't great with him either at that point. But I do think it speaks to something that Danny Jansen and him connected so much. And Carlos Narvaez, it's 90th percentile framing. Alex Cora went out of his way a couple days ago to say he's been the best defensive catcher in all of baseball, which he has been. He leads the entire MLB amongst catchers in defensive runs saved. I think they're going to lean more and more to that. The fact that it looks like it's going to be an equal job at this point in time. Carlos Narvaez hadn't even played, more than 5 games in the big leagues coming into this year. He's already taking that time away from Wong. I think it's, a couple weeks before you see it, 4 or 5 days to Narvaez and then 2 or 3 to Wong.
Real quick, though, I bet you they're saving Narvaez for tomorrow with Dobbins on the mound because Dobbins is a rookie. I just don't know if Bayo can handle it himself. I would put Narvaez back there tonight, too.
So the Narvaez acquisition to me has been surprisingly good. And when I say surprisingly, nobody knew anything about this guy. Not really. And a pleasant surprise. Wong obviously back. Cora has said now it'll be something closer to a 50-50 split. So let's see how he handles the catching situation. And just quickly, for those of you who are headed to the game or watching it, listening to it, what have you, the matchup tonight, not in your favor. Joe, I don't know how Joe Ryan has been pitching. I should probably know that.
He kills the Red Sox, though.
But he is, I think Joe Ryan's terrific.
I love watching him pitch.
So, and he's another guy that doesn't exactly blast you out of the batter's box, but he's got a sneaky, sneaky, explosive fastball. And when I say sneaky, explosive, it's got life. My recollection is he's 93, 94, but it feels a lot harder than that. So I like Ryan. I give the Twins the edge tonight. The Red Sox should have the edge in the remaining 2 games of the series. Although, as you said, Matt Dobbins is pitching the game tomorrow. Day game at Fenway Park, 4:10 start. Crochet goes on Sunday. I would just say, don't let the 2 losses compound. See, now the danger of those 2 losses is you're facing Joe Ryan tonight. You lose that game, now it's 3 in a row. But you got to win. You got to win every series you play, or at least try to. Quick last thoughts.
Yeah, Joe Ryan this year, it's a 3.18 ERA. Maz, he's striking out 10 per 9. When the Red Sox strike out 10 times in a game so far this year, they're 5-13. So that's kind of been the barometer for them. That's not a good recipe.
Stu, did you have something back there?
Yeah, I want to leave the show with something fun, and it's actually a request from a listener. If you're interested,
sure, go.
Fun,
please.
So we have a special request for a tool bag of the day, and I know it's a different show and a sponsorship, but I'm going to hit somebody who wants to be the tool bag of the day.
Okay, go.
It's time for the Tool Bag of the Day, brought to you by Matthews Nissan of Wellesley.
What a tool. Hey, that guy's a tool bag. What a tool. What a friggin' tool. It's a tool bag of the day.
Do you know who this is?
No, tell.
Chris Cotillo, for asking the question of Alex Cora the way that he did.
Aren't you friendly with Cotillo, Jerry?
It was actually Cotillo messaged us.
Oh, and
he asked to be tool bag of the day.
Yeah, so look,
I think he earned it.
I
Good
like
for
Chris.
you, Cotillo.
Yeah, and I mean, he knew to ask the question. He wasn't at the game last night. That's part of the problem.
His actual message was, I feel completely robbed of the tool bag of the day. If you just waited 10 minutes to anoint one, I would have had it. Trust me, it's a dream.
Listen,
okay, there you go. That's a good one.
Cotillo, you still have one more to catch up to me, so get on it.
And we didn't even mention, by the way, last night, that crap play in right field that William Abreu made.
It was not good.
90th percentile catch probability.
Okay. Also screwed the game up with another bad defensive play. I'll just...
It's time for the Tool Bag of the Day.
Everybody have a good weekend. Matt McCarthy's got your headlines here, including a notable roster move from the Red Sox before tonight's game that's coming up next.
Studios. The 18-time world champion Boston Celtics are looking for number 19.
Tatum pull up.